The next thing I'd like to talk about, a common word I think for this is chops. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're a drummer, you got good chops." Um, I really feel like what they're saying is how well can you show off, and that's really not what we're trying to do. But chops really just mean drum fills. But there are, obviously there are a lot of drum fills in songs that are being put out, and they do make it interesting. But they also do serve the purpose of like taking you to the next section. And so it can be helpful to try and learn, the exact drum fills that are on the record. I would say don't get too bogged down with that though. First and foremost, when you're learning a song, I think I'm kind of skipping ahead, but when you're learning a song, capture the feeling of the song first. So making sure you got that kick and snare down pat, in each of the sections. Knowing, where's the kick playing, what's the snare doing? Is it a tom groove? Is it all that? That's really the most important. And then the fills are kind of like secondary to that. But it can be helpful to have some notation. The other thing I say is it's pretty cool. You can also just kind of come up with your own vocabulary. But it also this same set of techniques can help you write down, give you some kind of notation, to be able to write down and translate what you're hearing onto paper, and then be able to execute it. And so this is one drum fill, and it's not more. It's more important, just like I said, the technique rather than this drum fill. But in the top line, this is what we call a linear drum fill. So there's something happening. This is in a 16th note pattern, 1E and a 2E and a. And then, so the top line is what piece of the kit I'm playing, but really that could, besides the kick, you think about the snare and the toms. I used M for middle tom and then F for floor tom. But really, you could kind of put those wherever you want. So I start on the tom instead of the snare. But this is just one example I wrote out. So then you can see where each of those go. So the snare goes on the 1, and then so we got a snare, and then we're followed by 2 kicks, and then a tom, and then a snare, kick, tom, 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 kick, kick, tom, snare, kick, floor, 4 tom. So that's just kind of how you read it. And then down at the bottom, so I've kind of wrote out what I wanted to play at the top, and how that goes with the timing. But then at the bottom, I figured out, okay, how can I best optimize this fill? And I knew that I wanted to end with the right hand on the crash, because it's just kind of natural, right? So I basically worked it backwards and said, well, where do I need to start? And so I figured out, like, I should start with my left hand. So if you were to play this drum fill, 1, 2, 3. Obviously the crash hit is not on there, but so that's kind of how you'd play it. And so writing this out and then putting that together, you can then start to slow it down, work on the first part. Maybe you take like the first measure, the 1E, and so you do, and so you get that down, and now that you have the hands, which hand you're going to use, left or right, written out, you won't learn it one way and then at the very end be like, okay, I got to flip this around. So anyways, I think this is a fun fill. Let's see. The other thing I do like about that, I just point out about this fill, I like about it is that it keeps the time. So you'll notice the snare is on the 2 and the 4. Everything else doesn't really matter, but right? I could play it with the tom leading. Um, that's kind of saying you can shift it around, but the snare on the 2 and the 4 kind of keeps that groove. So if you were playing a groove, it's not lost when you go to do this fill. So here's a song example. Right. Um, Another thing I'll just go ahead and mention about drum fills. Sometimes it can be really jarring if you're jumping subdivisions. So in this example, like let's just say you were playing a quarter note subdivision, right? So just the one right on the bar. So right, it almost doesn't fit, right? It's like jarring. But if I play eighth notes and then I go to a 16th note fill, it fits a little better. So that's what I would say. So here's like eighth note to 16th note. So just kind of be mindful of that when you're doing drum fills. It's like if you take it up, I feel like 2 subdivisions is almost too much. 1 subdivision you can get away with it. It's even better if you're in the same subdivision, right? So if I was already playing 16th notes. It's even less jarring. So that's just one thing I could point out. But yeah, applying that to another drum fill. Here's the second 16th note subdivision. This one starts out with 2 snares and then 2 kicks, and then followed by a tom snare, kick, and then tom, kick, snare, tom, snare, kick, tom, tom. So this is what it would sound like. All together. And then I actually did use this one the other day. I don't know if I liked it or not, but it's the same fill, but I shifted it around. So I played, I think the, I started on the snare, played the E on the bell. So that's kind of the fun thing about them. When you ride them out, you can kind of realize, hey, I can shift this around. So that's a couple of things. But I think the main thing to take away from that is when you listen to a song or you're like, man, I really want to learn this fill. What's going on here? A lot of times they are linear, where it's just like one thing is playing at a time. And so if you can slow it down enough, listen to it enough where you can write down exactly what was going on, then you can kind of figure out what's the best hand motion for that. That one, this fill starts on the right hand because I knew I was going to need enough hands, again, to end on that left. So my crash is open to be at the right hand. Not to say, maybe you want to end on your left hand and have that crash open on your left hand. But that's just a way, go through and writing it out. Gives you that option to figure out what is the best hand to hit, arrangement. I have one more fill, and wanted to throw this one in there because I find it super helpful. It kind of shows you too how I would write out if I had 2 things going on. So this is a non-linear fill. It's really simple, but this one works actually pretty well on slow songs if I want to take it up that next level. I've got the snare and the crash. I didn't write out the kick, but you could throw a kick in there. But But yeah, it sounds like this in kind of a context. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, that kind of just, I don't know, to me, I really like that. Starting with that crash makes it feel a lot longer than it is as well. Because it's only one measure, but because it's a slow song, that really just, like, it almost kind of says, bam, it's right in your face. And then, like, but it also says, hey, we're going somewhere. We're going a lot bigger. So that's a good one, especially if you need to bring it up a couple levels. It works really well on a lot of old songs too. More than just the new stuff, but like song, Jesus is the answer. If I was starting out here, I don't know, it just really brings it up a lot. So I like that. I like that, Phil.